it's gonna focus. Is it gonna focus? Yay, it focused. Hello, welcome to another video from our study notes. In today's video, I am going to be going over how to get the most out of school. I've definitely had a lot of experience with this. I've been at school for almost 13 years. I'm in my last year at school this year, so there's definitely been a lot that I've been able to think about during my years at school. I think now that it's sort of coming to an end, I'm able to sort of reflect on that and see what I've missed out on and what I could have done better. And then just pass that advice on to the next generation of students so you guys can get the most out of being at school. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 things. The first one's motivation, the second one's doing your best, the third one is perfectionism, the fourth one's health, and the fifth one is stress. So I'm just going to be going over those little 5 things and hopefully you can find something you can take out of it. The first thing I want to sort of talk about is motivation and a long-term plan during your school years to do as much as you possibly can. And I know a lot of people go into school thinking that it's a waste of time and you're not going to get anything out of it, but I think motivation plays a really important role in getting the most that you can out of your time at school, because if you have motivation, you have a more positive mindset, because you sort of see everything as an opportunity to learn and grow as a person. Motivation is definitely a long-term thing. I know it's a really challenging thing to be motivated 24/7. There's this thing called discipline, which sort of comes hand in hand with motivation. When you don't have motivation, you have discipline backing it up, keeping you going. I have a YouTube video on how to find motivation if you want to check that out, but basically the key idea with motivation is looking at your life and viewing every single thing that ever happens to you as an opportunity to grow as a person, seeing it as a way to get what you want out of life. So say you're going to school, but when you leave school you want to be a baker or in the Air Force, and the stuff you learn at school might not be helpful at all for those sorts of jobs, but you sort of need to look at school as an opportunity to grow yourself as a person, make loads of friends, and learn how to better yourself and learn how to organise your time as well, which is also something really important that school's really helpful for. And obviously there are times when you're not going to have motivation and you're going to see the stuff you're doing as pointless, but you sort of just need to keep the small voice in the back of your mind telling you that what you're doing is worth something. And I know sometimes if you're going into a career that doesn't involve maths at all and you're forced to do math at school, it can sort of feel like the worst thing to do in the entire world because you just really don't want to be there. But you're the person telling yourself that you don't want to be there. You can sort of change your mindset and twist your perception to trick yourself into enjoying the stuff that other people in your position might not enjoy. Everyone's in charge of their own sort of approach to life and your mindset. That's entirely controlled by you. It just takes a lot of control to be able to have motivation and get the most out of everything that you can. As I was saying, when you don't have motivation, obviously there are days where you just feel like bleh. Discipline helps back that up, and having systems in place that help you through those times that you don't have motivation are really helpful. Habits are a really great way of putting that discipline into your life because it's something that you're used to and you can easily carry out. Habits make stuff a lot easier, and if you're used to doing something, then you fall into that level of comfort. And I guess the idea behind that is it's really great being able to have something there to fall back on, and that's sort of what discipline and habits are. And discipline is also something that takes a lot of time to grow, and not everyone has it. You'll see that the people who work in really stressful jobs or stuff with lots of workloads, such as doctors, army officers and that sort of like genre of jobs, they're going to have a lot of discipline, and there are going to be days when a doctor doesn't feel like giving someone open heart surgery and saving their life, but you know that what you're doing is helpful for you or someone else in the long term, and discipline is the thing driving you to keep doing it even if you don't have the motivation to do it. So I hope that made sense in terms of like motivation, and then linking motivation to school. Motivation is the thing that keeps you doing your homework, doesn't keep you from falling behind, makes you study when you don't want to, makes you, get up out of bed in the morning. And discipline is the thing on those days when you're having a really shitty day, when you've just got a bad test result, when your life just isn't going great. Discipline is the thing that's going to get you out of bed and keep you going. There's also like that knowledge in the back of your mind that you are doing this for a reason. I think that's just a really important thing to have when you're going to school. And the key thing with motivation at school, I think, is focusing not on what you're learning exactly, but the process of learning. Because I think the process of learning is really what school is for. And I think our society is changing and realizing that kids want to get more out of school than just learning from textbooks, and that there's so much more to life than doing that. But then to some extent we also have to teach people the knowledge they need. Anyway, I'm going off on a complete tangent. Basically, the idea of all of that was to focus on learning and not what you're learning. The process is the most important thing, and that's what's going to help you grow, and it's going to be so helpful in the future. The next thing is doing your best and having a positive attitude towards grades and stuff that you get. When you get a test back and it's got a number on it, a lot of us let that number define who we are. It sort of devalues us and we let it prove our worth. And I don't think that's a great attitude to have when it comes to results. And we care so much about comparing ourselves to other people when really we should only be comparing ourselves against ourselves, because everyone's different and everyone's going to approach a test in a different way and everyone's going to have different results. So when you look at results, try not to compare yourself against other people, even let the numbers define who you are. If you're 50%, you are not worth 50% as a person. You are worth 100%. You're worth like 1,020, 100%. You get what I mean. Those numbers do not define you. But look at those results and focus on how you can improve from there. And the mindset you can sort of have towards results and when you get them is you get your results, right? And you didn't do as well as you expected. So like, that's a bit of a bummer, but I worked hard. I know I worked hard, but I see this place where I haven't worked hard enough. And then you focus on that bit for the future and then you improve on it. And basically results and tests are just reiterations of that process, and you just keep on rolling over and over and over that process until eventually you do well by your standards against yourself. I think that sort of process is really important, so just focusing on areas to improve on every single time and like picking out the weaknesses and working on those. So yeah, do your best. Have a positive attitude, focus on what you can improve on for the future, and don't let bad results define you. The next thing is perfectionism and sort of like the black hole that it can be. I think a lot of people think that 100% is like the goal of school, getting 100%, getting ducks, getting, those sort of like top achieving things. But school isn't about being a perfectionist or being perfect. It's about looking at your weaknesses and seeing where you can grow from them. And I sort of like go into this in more depth in my video on how to deal with failure. Basically, you just need to accept that no one's going to be perfect. And you're not going to get 100% in every single test. I mean, yes, there might be some people who do better than you, and you shouldn't let those people who do better than you put you down, But you should let that be sort of a motivation to try and do better, because if someone can do it, then you can do it. And that's the only time where I think comparing yourself to other people is okay. It's sort of like a spectrum, I guess. Like, to some extent that can be helpful, but if you let it get too competitive and too toxic, then it can be bad for you. So you sort of just need to rein it in and figure out how it can be helpful to some extent, and how you can view like other success as motivation. And that's also a really important part of growth mindset. And the thing is, like, at least with IB, you don't need to get 100% to get a good grade. You can get like 70 or 80% and get like the top grade. Really, there's like a lenience in how perfect you can be. And that's, comforting in a way, because they're not expecting you to know every single thing. There are going to be things in tests that you don't know, either because you didn't revise or because they just wanted to throw a curveball in and see how people can manage with it. I think realising that is really important. Realising that it's okay not to be perfect is a really great way to sort of approach school and just life in general. So yeah, perfect is not the goal when it comes to exam results or school. It's about just being your best self, putting your best self out there and being healthy sort of in your mindset and having a positive mindset towards school. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is health. Everyone thinks that like success at school is solely dependent on your grades, but I think it's sort of way more than that. There's so much more that goes into like succeeding, doing well at school, than purely studying hard. And it's so important to take time for yourself and not let yourself get too caught up doing well. A lot of people just like dedicate themselves to studying like hours and hours on end. They never take time for themselves, and that can be really detrimental in the long run and in the short term as well. My sort of like key tips for health are eating healthy. I mean, it's obviously alright to treat yourself. There are foods where I sort of like to indulge myself, and that sort of makes me feel better mentally. Obviously, they're not foods I eat all the time, but saving it as a treat is what makes them taste so good. The next thing is exercise. Obviously, exercise is so good for you, and exercise has been shown in countless studies to improve your concentration, exam results, mindset, mental health and well-being, and being physically healthy really helps you have more motivation and focus on your work better. Mental health is obviously another really important thing. Taking time to yourself and not letting yourself get too caught up in school is so extremely important that I can't drill into how important that is. Doing well is so dependent, I think, on your mindset, and that is dependent on your mental health. So taking care of yourself really helps to determine that sort of process and what you get out of school. And the next part of this health subsection is sleep. Sleep is so important, and I've made an entire video on the importance of sleep, so check that out. Most teenagers don't get enough sleep. It can be really detrimental for your health and your studies, and you can achieve a lot better if you get more sleep. And then the last thing I want to talk about is stress. Don't let yourself get sucked into the stress vortex that school tries to nudge you into. Try not to listen to how much people are complaining or, stressing out about stuff, because that will just make your own internal monologue so much worse. It'll sort of cement this idea in your mind that you must be stressed because everyone else around you is stressed as well, and that's just what school is. School is not that. You don't need to be stressed at all or all the time. There might be times when you're a little bit stressed, but being stressed 24/7 is just not sustainable. Stress is so bad for your health. I can't even begin to talk about how bad stress is. I'm going to be doing a video on stress just by itself in the future. Stress is often unnecessary and very detrimental both to your studies and your health. Even telling yourself that you're not stressed, telling yourself that everything's going to be alright, I think can sort of help reduce your stress levels. At least it works for me. Like, when I know I should be really stressed and I'm not really stressed, basically what I'm doing in my head is telling myself that there's no need to be stressed and it's alright. And really the big picture is, does this really even matter? No. Does this deadline really matter? No. You know, that's sort of what I do. I just tell myself that it doesn't matter, and then I don't really get stressed. I'm pretty chill. So yeah, that's sort of my approach to not being stressed at school. Like, if you ask people, I don't get that stressed at all. It's just being chill and realizing that in the grand scheme of things, this test that you have does not matter. The grades that you get, not going to matter. And the thing is that when you worry about something, you're putting yourself through that pain more times than is necessary. Worrying that about like what's going to happen if you get a bad test result is just like putting you through that situation. In reality, the chances of that happening might not actually be that high, and really there's no need to worry about it. There's definitely a lot of unnecessary stress the school carries with it, and a really great way, I think, to sort of enjoy school is to not let that stress get to you. And yeah, to wrap this all up, basically I want to say that school is a tiny little speck in your life. Like, really small. I mean, it does take up like 13 years, so if you live
39 times 2.
If you live to 78 years, it's a sixth of your life. School is not like that important. The results that you get are not going to matter or determine really the rest of your life. I think that sort of mindset really helps you keep it in perspective, and it's sort of just really an opportunity to grow, learn how to learn, so you can implement that later in your life. And that's basically it. And having been at school for almost 13 years now, I can say that the only thing I've really gotten out of it is TOC, which is Theory of Knowledge in IB, which is basically this like philosophy of keeping yourself in perspective and having a growth mindset, basically realizing that you are this tiny little person in this world with like 7+ billion people, and that your problems are not the biggest problems in the entire world. There's so much more important stuff going on, and worrying about one little test is probably not the best thing you should be doing with your time, and procrastinating probably also isn't the best thing to be doing your time because you could be studying for that test. But yeah, the idea of TOC is keeping yourself in perspective and keeping yourself grounded and looking at life as this opportunity to grow. And that is what school has taught me. So thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, click the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.